Has it really been 20 years since the 2005 championship? Carolina's program is where it is today because of one single moment from one and done freshman.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, September 9th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch, and a special shout out goes out to all the everydayers out there, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and all our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Welcome in, everybody. This episode's brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your next order. All right, guys, here we go. Coming up on the show today, Carolina obviously beat Charlotte on Saturday, 38-20, in a game that somehow both felt like it wasn't as close as the score indicated, and also one that didn't feel overwhelmingly dominant. Whatever the case, Carolina has started 2-0 for the third year in a row. Now, we hit on this game in great detail on our live postcast on Saturday after the game, so if you're looking for that, go check it out there. We will, though, touch on a few football things coming up in the third segment today towards the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. But where we want to start in the first and second segments today, as we're looking at our roadmap, is just remembering the 2005 championship team, man. After this, after them being honored during the football game on Saturday, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it all weekend. Been watching back games, looking at box scores, reminding myself of moments and memories. And man, I'm all ate up with it right now. And I just thought it would be a great and fun thing for us to talk about today on the show. So, and I think particularly for me, I was a junior in college during this 04-05 championship season. We had just endured a couple years of less than stellar play. I will say it that way. My senior year of high school was the 2001-2002 season. Yeah, not exactly awesome. So it was a lot. And so this particular team, this particular time, because of when it was in my life, junior in college, it just has stuck with me in a big way. And so it's been an absolute blast looking back on it over this weekend. So what I want to do is look back on my 5 favorite moments or games or influences, things that happened in that season. And we're going to count it down from 5 to 1. And man, yours might align with mine. They might not, but I would love to hear from you, man, because I love telling these stories. I love talking to people about these stories. And so, man, come on and share them with me. And I just do want to say, even off the top here, because I don't really want to bring this angle of it up again, but very noticeably absent on the field Saturday was Rashad McCants. We all know just the animosity that's gone back and forth, the role that Rashad played in the scandal that was being investigated by the NCAA and the things he said there. And so I just want to recognize the tension of his absence in this moment. In fact, he tweeted on Saturday, there was a picture of the guys from their gathering on Friday night, I think on the Smith Center floor, and he just quote tweeted that picture and said, I'm quoting here, so forgive my improper grammar, when has the Bulls ever celebrated without MJ? And as you would imagine, the comments on this tweet are all over the map. And so I'll just let you go investigate that for yourself. But here's the thing for me. It hurts. It hurts that this is a thing. I hate that there is this divide. I don't like it to be a thing. I would love for this to be resolved and come to fruition one day. I would imagine that's how most of the people involved in this feel. And so I do just want to acknowledge that off the top. so that we can also get it out of the way and move on to all the awesomeness that's going to ensue. So here are my 5 favorite moments. Oh, by the way, I disallowed myself from including the national championship game or the national championship itself. So this is my 5 favorite moments from the 2004-2005 UNC team non-championship game edition. Okay, number 5, Carolina winning at number 19 UConn just 4 days after losing at number 7 Duke. Lots of things that go into this. Let's first remember Carolina and UConn had scheduled a home and home. The game at Carolina was the prior year, 03 or 04, Roy's first year back at Carolina from Kansas. At that time, UConn was number 1 in the nation, and Carolina won that basketball game. And to me, that was one of the first signs of like, all right, not that everything's okay, but boy, this is a moment. This team, this group can have special things. Good things can happen again at Carolina. So there was that. And so it was great for Carolina to win both of these UConn games. But I also want to factor in the fact that literally 4 days before that, the first game against Duke of the season, the one at Cameron, Carolina had lost by 1 point. And we'll talk more about that game in a little bit and why that was such a hard thing to recover from. But being able to come back home and then go back on the road literally 4 days later against another top 20 basketball team and win, not in a nail biter. It was by 7 when it was all said and done. And it was great because the entire junior trio of Sean May, Raymond Felton, and Rashad McCants all had great days, 16, 16, and 50 points, respectively. Ray Felton also chipped in 10 assists. May also chipped in 13 rebounds. Senior Jawad Williams had 17 points. So you've got all this balanced scoring, and you're just starting to see, okay, is this going to be able to be something special? Because to me, it would have been very easy for this team, especially given all their history, to lose that game at Duke in a frustrating fashion for them, to let that loss turn into a second loss, to turn around and just kind of fall flat on your face. But that didn't happen. And that to me was a great sign of the growth and maturation of this entire group. And interestingly, you might recall that Rashad McCants was sick for a while this season. This was the first kind of public knowledge of that. In his post-game comments, talked about I haven't been feeling well for a while, and then went on to miss multiple games after that. But really, really, I thought crucial moment in this season for Carolina to go to UConn and win. That in a vacuum is awesome and incredible and a great sign. But doing that 4 days after losing a heartbreaker at Duke, all the more so to not have that emotional letdown. All right, my number 4 thing on this list, losing to Santa Clara 77-66 with no Raymond Felton, who you might recall was suspended for a game for playing in a non-certified summer league, to start the season. That was the first game of the season on the way out to Maui. Carolina loses that game, and just now on this side of it, you're like, all right, fine, cool, whatever. But think about everything the Tar Heel fan base and family had been through in the prior several years. And it's like, oh, we're going to start off this season by losing to Santa Clara. That's what's going to happen. But the reason this is one of my favorite moments in memories is that Carolina collectively rebounded from that. Obviously got Raymond Felton back, which is a massive deal, and then proceeded to reel off 14 straight wins after losing that game to Santa Clara. And those 14 wins included, amongst them, winning Maui, beating BYU, Tennessee, and Iowa, winning at Indiana. Keep in mind, that's Sean May's stomping grounds. Everybody's still mad at him for coming to Carolina instead of Bloomington like his dad did. Then beating number 8 Kentucky, and starting off ACC play, oh, by the way, 2-0 against number 22 Maryland and number 8 Georgia Tech. Yes, Georgia Tech was really good then. And then ultimately that winning streak was ended at number 4 Wake Forest, who was really, really good. That was one of just 3 losses the whole rest of the season. Carolina lost that Duke game we were just talking about, and then to Georgia Tech in the ACC semifinals. That's it. That's the 4 losses: Santa Clara and these 3. By the way, let me tell you Chris Paul's stat line from that Wake Forest loss: 26 points, 6 boards, 8 assists, 5 steals. Good grief. That dude was a menace. But I think another part of it that just felt so historic is even through all of these struggles that Carolina had, this loss to Santa Clara was just the 5th time since 1930 the Heels had lost their opening game. And so it's like, oh my gosh. But then to turn around, reel off 14 straight victories was a sign of like, just signs all throughout the season in different ways. It's like, okay, this team is something. Number 3 on this list of my favorite memories or moments or games, whatever it is, of the 04-05 season. Number 3, the Sean May late season takeover was real. For the season, Sean May averaged 15.8 points, 10 rebounds. In the 15.8, 10.0. For the final 11 games of the season, he jumped that to 22.2 points a game and 11.6 rebounds a game. Included in that stretch was 32-12 against Florida State, 26-24 in the regular season finale against Duke, 24-17 against Iowa State in the second round of the NCAA tournament, 29-12 against Wisconsin in the Elite Eight, and 26-10 in the national championship game. In fact, in the NCAA tournament, that 6-game run, Sean May averaged 22.3 points, so it went up a little bit more, 10.7 boards, that was slightly down, and shot 66.7% from the field and shot 50% or better in all 6 games. Never shot under 50% in the NCAA tournament. Sean May was an absolute beast down the stretch of that season, and along with Armando Bacot's run in 2022 is one of the greatest big man NCAA tournament performances we will ever see. Number 2 on my list here before we get to number 1, and you know I'm going to save that. We're going to build anticipation. That'll be in the next segment. But number 2, to start the NCAA tournament, Carolina cruised against Oakland, cruised against Iowa State before having that massive scare against Villanova. It's one of those games that you got to get through seemingly every NCAA tournament, maybe other than UConn the past 2 years, to just that game that, man, if you had lost it, obviously you're out, but you somehow found a way and you go win the championship. So Carolina, 67-66 over Villanova. Watching back some of those, watching back through actually a good chunk of that game, Jay Wright was so young. And I remembered at the time thinking, man, what a weird team. They run out all these guards and just like one big man, like down the stretch of the game. They were playing 4 players who were all 6'3" or under. Bill Raftery was talking about that on the broadcast. Crazy stuff at that point. I was like, what? Who do these guys think they are? And now it's the norm. Jay Wright was a man ahead of his time. Keep in mind, Villanova in this game was without Curtis Sumter, their leading scorer, or leading big man, I should say. But all the same, Villanova got up 21-9 early. They were up 30-19 later in the first half. And again, this was that game in most championship tournament runs that you just got to survive. You just got to get through. Like, think about 2009 championship. Carolina was down 5 to LSU with like 12 and a half to go. They ended up beating them by like 14. But there were moments in that second half was like, fellas, what are we doing here? Or Arkansas in the second round of the 2017 national championship run. The Heels were down 5 with like 2.5 to go, came out, got a bucket. There was that close call with Joel Berry where it was like, is that a charge, a travel? I don't know, but they didn't call anything and we got away with it and ended up winning. So this Nova victory was that game. Carolina was up 3 late. Allen Ray gets this shot off, goes in, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's down to 1. It's down to 1. Ray Felton's on the bench, fouled out. Whistle blows a little bit late. And I kind of thought in real time it was going to be a foul against Carolina. Turns out it was a travel Carolina ball. Great news there. We're under, there's probably 15 seconds or so left. McCants gets fouled, misses the first. I'm like, all you got to do, you just need 1, buddy, and you win. Makes the second. Great stuff. Carolina's up 67-63. But Kyle Lowry goes down and makes this kind of miracle 3. What's up, Marcus Page? Thinking about you. With 2 seconds left. Uh, Carolina, Sean May tries to inbound it. It gets blocked back out of bounds, called timeout. And then Sean May just wisely throws it down to the other side of the court. It's tipped around, and Villanova actually gets a shot off at the buzzer, but it misses in a big, 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 big way. So there you go. The first 4 of my 5 favorite moments of this 04-05 season. I have a strong suspicion you can probably guess what's going to be number 1 on my list. Well, you're going to have to wait for that. But I believe that it's the single most important moment of cementing the Roy Williams era. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about 5-Hour Energy, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot to stay alert to watch all your favorite games. Helps you get through that third quarter lull that you probably experienced yesterday on the first day of the NFL season. Or maybe you stayed up too late last night because you were watching Sunday Night Football go to overtime. And you had already watched all the regulation. I'm not missing overtime. So, probably this morning, Monday, you needed a 5-Hour Energy to help you get through this day. Well, 5-Hour Energy is the brand that hardworking people have trusted for over 2 decades. That means going back to this championship we're talking about to give them that alert, energized feel they need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5-Hour Energy, just right up near the counter at your favorite convenience or drug or grocery store nationwide. So stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure that you never run out of delicious, energizing 5-Hour Energy shots. Go to 5hourenergy.com, the number 5 not spelled out, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Now, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, and it cannot be used with any other promotions, and the code is no good on subscription orders. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. Oh, baby, here it is. The number 1 entry on my list of my favorite moments of the 2004-2005 championship season. And number 1 is the regular season finale, the home win over number 6 Duke on senior night, 75-73. Carolina wins, and things are right in the world. Now, I talked earlier that I would bring back up that loss at Duke, and here's why. The game right before Carolina went and won at UConn, Carolina had lost at number 7 Duke by 1 point. And what was frustrating is that Carolina got the ball down 1 with about 18 seconds left on the clock and never got off a shot. Kind of fumbled it out of bounds, I think, as the clock expired. Wasn't able to get anything up. Here in a second, the Tar Heels are going to be in that same position, and it's going to turn out a little bit differently. Now, I referenced this earlier in that UConn game that Rashad McCants was starting to feel a little iffy. He did not play in this game. It was at this point the 4th straight game with no Rashad McCants for the Tar Heels. And think about when Rashad McCants was awesome and you knew it. It was like, man, this is troubling. This is troublesome. And all the more so, Carolina is down 9 with 3 minutes to go in this game, 73-64. But then Jawad Williams putback, 73-66. Marvin Williams is fouled and hits both free throws. It's now 73-68. The deficit is already down to 5. Sean May gets blocked, gets it back, and finishes plus the free throw. The lead is now down to 2. JJ Redick misses a wide open corner 3 with just under a minute to go. Carolina is not able to convert on the other end. Duke gets the ball back, but David Noel pokes it away from Daniel Ewing. Carolina recovers, gets the timeout. And now we're to this situation that's almost identical to the moment at Duke where Carolina could not get a shot off. At this point, Carolina is down 2 instead of 1, and there's 27 seconds left instead of 18, but very similarly. Ray Felton is fouled, makes the first. And you know what happens next. If not, I'm so glad to be the one to get to tell you. He misses the second. As you're looking from behind the backboard, it kind of pops off back into the lane. The ball bounces around multiple hands, and then it goes off towards the bench. And whose hands does it fall into? But freshman Marvin Williams. Marv immediately gets shot back up off the glass. Boom, drops down. It is now tied. No, Carolina is now up. Right? No, it'd be 75. Whatever. It happens. And the final was 75-73. So Yeah, because Felton hit one, made it 73-72. The bucket makes it 74-73, and then the free throw makes it 75-73. I'm good at math, I promise. I had to figure that out in my head. I had messed up in my notes. Marv, unbelievable stuff. And to me, that moment that so many people, including Roy Williams, have said is the loudest they had ever heard the Smith Center, is to me the moment that's cemented that Carolina is back, that this is the Roy Williams era and stuff's about to get crazy. And it's all because of that one moment that Marvin Williams got that lucky bounce, found it, put that ball in, and then one of the best free throw shooters in Carolina history, despite the fact that he was only there for 1 year, sinks the free throw 75-73. And to me, this like a butterfly effect type moment where who knows where we're at today and what's happened if Marvin Williams doesn't make that shot and Carolina doesn't figure out how to win that game. I would imagine you eventually get back to big moments, but I don't know if they're the same. Marvin Williams cemented Roy Williams era. After that, though, JJ Redick still got off a pretty good look, a deep three for the win. Misses. Daniel Ewing gets the rebound, gets a look just inside the arc to send it to overtime. He misses. Sean May rebound. That's it, and that's all. In fact, JJ Redick was shut out the entire second half. You love it. And then for Carolina, by virtue of doing this, they also not only just beat Duke, but get the ACC regular season championship for the first time since 1993, the last national championship season. So lots of good had happened since Coach Williams had been there, right? Beating number 1 UConn the season before, beating Illinois, other wins over ranked opponents. But man, this was the moment that solidified Carolina being back. The talent was in place. The team was unified. And man, what a special moment for the University of North Carolina. Thank you, Marvin Williams. Thank you, Sean May and Rashad McCants and Jawad Williams and Roy Williams and Melvin Scott and Rayshawn Terry, Dave Noah, all the guys, man. Yes, critical moment. You love it so much. Well, let's switch now to football. Carolina is now 2-0, and sure, call beating Charlotte, no big deal if you want to, but I'll tell you what right now, there's a whole bunch of Auburn fans out there who would love to be sitting where we are. We'll talk about that and more in just a second. Right after I tell you about Ibotta, as we now get into football season this weekend, the first NFL season, we're a couple weeks into college football. You know that means it's tailgating time, and nothing beats getting ready for a football game like grilling out and playing games with your friends, just spending time together. So stock up on all your tailgating necessities and earn cash back on every purchase when you use the Ibotta app. So you won't have to choose between burgers and hot dogs. Just get both. Ibotta is this free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to the games that you need for your tailgating party. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, places like Lowe's and Macy's and Best Buy and more. Come on, man. It's incredible. Right now, Ibotta, in fact, is offering our listeners $5 just for checking it out, just by going to Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. Again, that's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. North Carolina defeats Charlotte 38-20 on Saturday. As I said earlier, we're not going to discuss it at length or in depth right now because we did that on the live postcast show. Go check that out. But what was interesting about this game is it felt like a very comfortable win. Charlotte did get it down to an 8-point lead, which is technically one possession early in the second half. But at that point, Carolina reeled off 17 straight points. Probably could have and should have been a few more. So it was this comfortable win, but it also didn't feel overwhelmingly dominant in the way that I think it could have been. But I feel comfortable with the way it's just this weird, like the difference felt wider than the 18-point margin that it was at 38-20. But All of that aside, the seesaw, the rocking back and forth, here's what's important and the truth we all need to know. The North Carolina Tar Heels in the post-Drake May, post-Sam Howell era are 2-0. And I know that Charlotte was one of them, but the other was at Minnesota. But let's think about what's going on around the country. Some other things that happened on Saturday. I just referenced it earlier. Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois. I would imagine that every Notre Dame fan, especially coming off of winning at Texas A&M the week before, was feeling pretty good about their chances of beating Northern Illinois, probably not giving it much of a shot of losing. Probably similar to what we all felt going into Saturday's game against Charlotte. But we're sitting here 2-0, and Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, are 1-1 right now. And oh, by the way, let's just be truthful about it, a better football team than Carolina is. But one of those teams won and the other team lost. Or, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, what about Auburn? Let's think about them. I know it's a better opponent because it's SMU, ACC, right? SMU knocked off Auburn. No business. You think Auburn had any thought that they might lose to SMU on this day? Absolutely not. Go ask my buddy Zach Blackerby, who hosts Locked on Auburn. Not a chance. That dude was shocked. We were talking about it on Sunday. And I know this was a game this team was supposed to lose, but State got obliterated by Tennessee on Saturday. And then you got others like Arkansas got up big on Oklahoma State. It's like, whoa, Arkansas, what are you doing? No, Arkansas or Oklahoma State comes back and wins. So yeah, it's Charlotte. Who cares, man? It's a win, and we move on and keep figuring things out. Now, obviously, Carolina's still not ranked, but added 3 more votes this week, had 4 votes last week. Now they're up to 7. You just got to keep winning. There's going to be a hindrance, though, to that winning opportunity, because one of the things we're waiting to hear from Coach Brown today on Monday is the status of all of these various injuries. I'm really hopeful that he provides a status update on all of them. Just in case you didn't hear them, before the game on Saturday, we learned that Kaimon Rucker was going to be out. And then kind of as the game was going on, learned that he's going to have a procedure done on his lower body that's going to have him out for, quote, a couple of weeks. We'll see how long that is. You do not want to rush Kaimon Rucker back. Also pregame, we learned that Darwin Barlow, the running back transfer from USC, was going to miss this game. During the game, Omarion Hampton went out. We were told after halftime that he would be able to come back in if needed, but it was one of those like, hey, not worth the risk. Also, Davian Goss is going off right now. So curious to see, though. I'm hopeful we'll get a status update there. Bryson Nestbit was not available after halftime, which we had no clue about the tight end missing anything, but he was out for the rest of the game with an upper body injury. Starting lineman, offensive lineman, Austin Blaski, had to come out. He's the center, man. That's critical role. He wanted to come back in. Similar to Hampton, the staff wouldn't let him, and because there's no need. It's probably hey, if this had been Florida State, you would have played, whatever. Freshman Aiden Banfield, offensive lineman, was out for a while as well. So Carolina's banged up right now early. Thankfully, Caleb Hood was able to come back and play in this game after missing week 1. So we're going to have to keep watching all of that. Well, let's talk about Conner Harrell, though. I was asked a really interesting question on our live postcast about grading Conner Harrell's performance on a 1 to 10 scale. In that moment, I gave it a 6. And I actually want to stick with that number now that I've thought about it some. I said I would come back and provide my more thought out answer to it. And frankly, my reasoning is the same. I thought that Conner Harrell had an up and down performance in this game, but I thought it was solid enough to help his team win. Had 1 turnover and interception, but no fumbles. That's encouraging. You'll enjoy seeing that. But again, it's also helpful when you've got Omarion Hampton and Bullet Goss behind you where you can just hand off to these guys, right? But also, there is room for Conner Harrell to be more consistent, to be more comfortable, and to be more confident. Those are the 3 C's that I thought about that I wanted to give you. That I think Conner, see how I went with C's, can be more consistent, comfortable, and confident. And when he does those 3 things, I think there was a very high ceiling above his head right now. And so I give him a 6, not because I thought it was bad, but because the consistent, comfortable, confident Conner has a long way up to the top and can really, really help this football team go places. So I'm curious to see what we get next week against NC Central after a week of watching his own film now on tape. Obviously, he had some from last year, but this is a different team with different things going on, different skill sets, different talents, all of that. And so I expect to see something new and different and better next week because of all of that, because of having the film, because of, all right, I got a game under my belt. Now I can settle in, right? There's just things like that that I really expect to see from him. As for the defense, we talked about there's some work to be done in the secondary, but the defense continues to do great work in the run game. Allowed just 12 first half rushing yards, 49 total for the game, after allowing, remember, just 15 in the second half against Minnesota. So the run defense has been doing very well so far. Javari Ritzie is a actual absolute sack monster right now, has 5 on the season. Shady stat of the game, and this is where I think we already see Conner Harrell's influence despite an up and down performance. In week 1, Carolina had exactly 1 play of 20 or more yards on offense. And that was, by the way, once Conner Harrell was in. In week 1 against Minnesota, Carolina had exactly 4 plays of 15 or more yards. Why do I tell you those things? Well, because the shady stat of the game for week 2, this Charlotte game, is this. While Carolina only had 1 play of 20 plus yards in week 1, they had 6 such plays in week 2. And this is critical. 3 through the air, 3 on the ground. That's neat. Also, I told you 4 plays of 15 plus yards in week 1, 13 of them, 13 plays of 15 or more yards this week. So things are trending up for the football team. I know it's a lesser opponent. I'm okay with that because we're getting this offense and this defense figured out who they are. You get the win at Minnesota. Now you take a couple weeks to figure things out before you go to Duke in week 5. Very quickly, weekend wrap up from other sports going on. Let's start with soccer, women's soccer. Oh man, unfortunately went and lost at Duke on Thursday, 1-0. This was a non-ACC matchup, but it was the first loss of the season for Carolina in any sport this fall. Man, I hate that. And I hate that it's Duke. Anyway, the ladies rebounded, beat Columbia yesterday 2-0. They're now 7-1 on the season, and they host Wake on Thursday in an actual ACC matchup. Men's soccer tied St. John's on Friday 2-2. They're now 3-0-2 on the season, and they are at Duke on Friday. That is an ACC matchup. Field hockey, as we talked about late last week, went to Louisville this weekend for the ACC Ivy League crossover. They took on Penn, and Princeton beat Penn on Friday 5-0, and Princeton on Sunday 2-0. So the ladies are now 4-0 on the young season. They are not back in action until Friday, September 20th. Not this Friday, next Friday, hosting Syracuse. Wrapping it up with volleyball, who split a pair this weekend at Columbia, South Carolina. On Saturday, they beat Temple 3-1, and unfortunately yesterday got swept by the hosting South Carolina Gamecocks 3-0. So there's your next loss on the young season. But all in all, still, all Carolina athletics team this fall have lost just 2 matchups. So the volleyball team is now 4-1 this season. Their next action is this coming weekend, the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas Classic. That'll be in Manhattan at Kansas State. They'll take on both Lipscomb and Kansas State. All right, guys, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're hopeful that we'll get some injury updates from the football team and some other things coming out at you. Hopefully some information from the official visits for the basketball team this weekend as well. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on video and audio, make sure you do that so that you don't miss a second of our show. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family, we'd love to have you in there. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. It's free to join. The link for it is in the show notes. Also, we've got a brand new program called the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, where you get to text with me one-on-one, man. Would love to spend time hanging out with you. This is a great way to do it and support the show. You get 2 weeks free, and then after that, checking it out, it's just $5 a month. just $5 a month. And that way you help support the show, and we still get to have all these great conversations, and you have access to all of my statistical data that I keep. All right, gang, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Be right back with you tomorrow, but until then, peace.